Hi, church. Just about everybody loves a fairy tale. I mean, I love to tell fairy tales to my kids and grandkids. Um, one, one of the stories has to do with a obscure poor girl. The story of Cinderella comes to mind. In that story, Cinderella's mother dies. Her father remarries, and the wife becomes the wicked stepmother. The stepmother has two daughters. And the prince, who's often away, has a father who's the king. He decides to have a grand ball and invites all the maidens to come. The stepmother makes sure her daughters are well dressed and meet the prince, but he has nothing to do with the stepdaughters. But Cinderella is left with all the chores to do until the fairy godmother turns the pumpkin into a coach, and the mice become her coachmen and gives her a beautiful gown and glass slippers. Prince Charming is taken with Cinderella, and when she leaves at midnight, she leaves behind her glass slipper. Well, the prince finds her, they marry, and live happily ever after. But as we get older, we wonder whether fairy tales are true. Do common girls living in obscurity ever marry a prince? The world watched Lady Diana, the commoner, a 20-year-old preschool teacher, marry Prince Charles. Her wedding was watched by millions around the world. She brought compassion to humanity, to the crown, but her marriage turned into a nightmare, and she was killed in a tragic car accident. And she had two sons. One's name is William. He married a commoner named Kate, and they have children together. Harry married the actress Meghan Markle, and they have moved away from Buckingham Palace. We open up the book of Esther. The story of Esther reads something like a fairy tale, but there's no Prince Charming. Believe me, King Xerxes is not Prince Charming. There's no Cinderella. She doesn't turn into a pumpkin. There's no wicked stepsisters. But there is a beautiful orphan girl whose name is Hadassah. We won't meet her until chapter 2. Hadassah means myrtle. Perhaps she was born under or beside a myrtle tree. Her Persian name is Esther, meaning star. In this story, you're going to have tragedy and loss. Esther is an orphan, having lost her mother and her father. I don't know how she lost her mother, but perhaps in childbirth or shortly after her birth. My own mother passed away just less than 1 year after she was born due to the Spanish flu of 1926. You have in the story human love. She was raised by her cousin Mordecai. Perhaps the last request of her parents was that Mordecai would raise up their daughter. I'm sure he tried to teach her right and wrong. I learned that from VeggieTales, that she was taught right and wrong from Mordecai, and always to do the right thing. But Mordecai and Esther could have gone back to the promised land with the 50,000 Jews who went back. There's a suggestion that because they stayed behind in Susa, they were very comfortable with the Persian culture. They were compromised in their faith. So does God work in situations like that? You'll meet in chapter 3 the villain of the story, whose name is Haman. He is second to the king. He is quite full of himself. He expects everybody to bow down to him. And when Mordecai won't bow down, he convinces the king to annihilate the Jews and take their silver and put it into the royal treasury. If the story has a villain, Haman, the story also has a heroine, Esther. Isn't it great to have someone we can look up to? Esther is humble and respectful and courageous. She is herself Jewish, but she does not disclose her nationality and her faith. Her uncle encourages her to keep it a secret. When Haman's plot becomes the king's edict, she will have to disclose her identity to save her people. It's a story with suspense and surprises and many, many twists and incredible irony. There is irony in every chapter. Ultimately, what the evil villain Haman plots against the Jewish people brings him down. You have in this book poetic justice and a happy ending. The book is satire. So you ask, what is satire? Satire is comedy with an edge. It exposes the foolishness and the pride of this world. A good example of satire is the emperor's new clothes. Swindlers tell the king that they can make new clothes so soft that they will feel like you are not even wearing them. The clothes are so magical, only fools can't see them. Only the wise can see these clothes. So the king isn't so wise, and he says, I need these clothes, make me some new clothes. So the swindlers pretend to be making them. Finally, they pretend to put them on the king. Then they parade the king through the city. Everybody is embarrassed to say the king has no clothes except a child. Everybody would be considered foolish, you can't see them. But the child says the emperor has no clothes. So this is a satire showing the foolishness of the kingdoms of this world and the quiet work of God's providence behind the scenes. We're going to open up Esther chapter 1 this week. We're going to look at the foolishness of a king and the boundaries of his queen Vashti, as God is setting the stage quietly behind the scenes, bringing Esther onto the scene for the sake of saving the people of Israel, the Jews. I look forward to opening up Esther 1 to you this week. Read it ahead and see what God says to you as you begin to think about the quiet providence of God in your life, how he is working behind the scenes.